y'all, it's Alex and welcome back to Dungeons & Drawings & Dragons. This is the second video in this series, and today we'll be designing the rogue. This was decided by you guys over on my Instagram, however, I think I'm going to be changing up the selection method from here on out, but more on that later. For now, let's get rolling. To pick our background, race, and a couple of other things I have down at the bottom of this chart I made, these are the specific dice we're going to use. And it looks like we have a noble centaur rogue. And just putting these dice back here because I didn't film it the first time. Whoops. We'll get more into this stuff later, but it looks like our archetype is assassin. And let's get into the character design. In creating the centaur, I wanted to stay away from the druidic or barbaric fashion that I saw in a whole bunch of pictures while looking for ideas. A lot of the original mythology ideas for, I don't know, say centaurs and orcs and stuff like that is kind of like a little based on savagery, kinda, almost. So I'm going to be moving away from that a lot. I'm not a big fan of that. So because of his noble background, I really wanted him to be kind of military-esque, I guess is the best way to put it. I already went really on the nose fashion-wise for Celuthane being a wood elf and all, so I wanted to make sure that they also didn't look too much alike if he was, say, dressed in all furs and so on and so forth. Oh god, the worst idea that I had for the entire sketching process of this was the weird diadem thing that I put around his head. It looks like he took the tassels from the end of curtains and then just put them on there, and thankfully I moved on from that. So we're gonna put this character into kind of like a more high nobility outfit. Because if we didn't, I was a little worried that we might have a team that looks like 7 druids or barbarians out of the 12 people at the end of this process. And only one of them is allowed to be a druid. And one barbarian, but you know what I'm saying. Originally, I wanted to play off of the typical roguish outfit, something with a hood and usually dark colors, but then I got to thinking, how exactly would a centaur sneak attack? It could be done. The centaur could have, like, enchanted horseshoes that would be able to make it sneak a lot easier, but thinking about playing him as an assassin rogue, I'm thinking it would be more fun to have other team members chase the targets towards him, and then he just jump out and stab at them, maybe. Maybe he wouldn't really even be into the attacking idea. With his noble background, I figure he's the kind to waltz into a gala and then maybe pour some poison into someone's wine and escape in the shadows. So I definitely played more towards the nobility aspect. And I went with mostly dark blues and such because that would be a lot easier to hide in the shadows if he had to hide in the shadows. I want to get your guys' opinion. Do you think a centaur would make an effective rogue? Tell me in the comments below, and I should hopefully have figured out cards by now, so there might be a poll in the top corner. Designing clothes for centaurs was a little tricky for me, mostly because I didn't know where I would want to draw the line for centaur modesty. I did, however, want to put his family insignia somewhere on his body, and I didn't want it to be too small. Of course, the only place that ended up looking good was essentially going to give him a My Little Pony cutie mark, but we're not going to think too hard about that. I decided that his family mark would be peacock feathers, which from the peacock feathers kind of developed into feathers as a whole. You can see them all along the trim of his cape and the weird blanket thing he has over his body. This developed from the name I chose to give him, Alcus Alstellaire. And Alcus is more or less a bastardization of the name Argus, aka the hundred-eyed servant of Hera, who was then slain by Hermes and then immortalized in the tail of a peacock. You know, this is kind of what all of my naming conventions come down to. It's just change a letter, maybe two. I think we have Phoenix Wright to blame for that. Anyway, I like the symbolism of the ever-watching eye and the peacock feather that associates with the family. Now, let's get into the character behaviors. These 4 sections are the other things we rolled for at the very beginning of this video. And they are determined by a list under the character background, and the 4 aspects are the personality trait, an ideal, a bond, and a flaw. This is the part that I kind of missed out on the first video in the series where I used a fast character generator. I just felt that I wasn't able to get into her head as much, and that's why I went so on the nose with, she's a wood elf. We're gonna basically draw a druid, but oh wait, she's a wizard. Don't know what that noise was, but I mean, it pretty much exemplifies my entire mood this week. Moving on to the... Oof, I've had a long week. I'm sorry, guys. First up is his personality trait, as read from the D&D wiki, which I will link down below. I do not like to get my hands dirty, and I won't be caught in unsuitable accommodations. This is a secondary reason why I don't think he'd really be one to readily sneak attack. I think his ideal situation, of course, is going to a gala, and if there happens to be a target there, he will take care of it, but there's no way he'd be the kind to, like, crawl through the sewers or the alleys and then sneak up on guards. He'll leave that to the rest of the members of this team. Next up is the ideal. We got, if I can attain more power, no one can tell me what to do. This is actually the evil ideal, meaning he'll be on the evil section of the alignment chart, and I'm 100% okay with evil characters in this team. If I ever choose to do anything with them, like a comic or anything, it would be fun to play around with that. For his bond, we got, my house's alliance with another noble family must be sustained at all costs. This one is a little harder to do anything with in just the character creation aspect, but it might be good to keep this in mind when we make future characters, so that way we can start building ties, and maybe this is part of the reason why he's joined this adventuring group, or whatever we decide that this ends up becoming. Last but not least, his flaw is, by my words and my actions, I often bring shame to my family. Perhaps he's a little too hot-headed and picks fights in galas or official affairs, and maybe that's the reason why he's adventuring with a whole bunch of nobodies. Some other bits and pieces that I rolled for were his stats. I glossed over that part in the filming process because, boy, am I a slow writer. And it also took a few tries to get it to actually look good, more times than I would like to admit. One thing I'd like to mention is that one of the items I gave him is called the Silken Wile. It's the rapier he has slung, or like tied to his hip. And I found this item on r/D&D. It was created by Aspera Art. I have the link to their Tumblr down below. It's a rapier that can only be used by bards, rogues, and warlocks, and what really drew me in was the curse that this person gave this weapon. If someone ever calls you to either a formal duel or a dance, the love of pageantry instilled in you by the Silken Wile makes it impossible to refuse. I included this item in my own D&D 5e game, and I think it would be hilarious for him to be gifted this item and not realize the curse that comes along with it until he gets challenged to a duel. And I'm really thanking that artist for sharing that item. I absolutely love it to death, and both of the bards in my 2 campaign groups absolutely loved using this item. So, thank you. Now, for the next video in the series, I hope I've figured out how to do polls for sure, because I want to put it down to a vote. It looked a little chaotic last time, having a whole bunch of my comments just on the post, so I hope that this will streamline the process. And last time, it was also decided by my Instagram, but I would rather this one be decided by all of you here on YouTube. So be sure to look in the top corner for the poll for the next Dungeons & Drawings & Dragons. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this second episode of this series, and I really hope that I will be able to move on to the next one soon. If you'd feel so inclined, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of future uploads, and check me out on my other social media handles. Thanks, and I'll see y'all in the next one.